everyone, great to be here. I'm Luke, I lead growth at ElevenLabs. I'm responsible for two bits. One is the marketing side across the company, but the other is some of our product and engineering teams, including our creative platform. And we've spoken a good amount publicly about how we approach growth and marketing, but we've actually never spoken publicly about how we do products. I'm really excited to share some of the lessons we've learned, the funky ways that we approach product. Raise your hand if you've heard of ElevenLabs. Perfect. We announced a partnership with Miro this morning, so hopefully you were all paying attention, and that's somewhat of a trick question. But we launched about 4.5 years ago, and since then we've crossed over 500 million in revenue. We've hit an 11 billion valuation. We've partnered with lots of incredible companies, so whether it's Disney, Adobe, Accenture, Harvey, and we're in a bunch of different countries. But what's interesting about ElevenLabs as well is this journey of, we really started with building the best models, and we now have a bunch of different products which are all at scale. And these models, so ElevenLabs actually started with Piotr, who was a researcher at Google, and he decided, hey, I think I can apply this transformer technology to audio. And there had been this unsolved problem in AI research, which was, can you create truly human-like voices? And this had started with, I think it's the late 1700s, building like wind-powered instruments. And then you had the early digital speech synthesizers, but no one had really cracked it. You wouldn't want to hear like a bedtime story. It's not like a Matthew McConaughey or a Morgan Freeman style voice. And so he left Google, and he was like, I think I can take a crack at this problem. And he spent about a year just in the research phase, and he managed to do it. And he teamed up with Matty, and the first product they launched was this model. And it was an API and a small text box, and you could paste in text into the text box. You could choose from 11 voices, and it would say it out loud, and it would have incredible emotion. It could even laugh. It would sound really human-like. But this was like a really thin wrapper around the model. And that plus the API actually managed to get it to its first $10 million of revenue. And so that's a great start, but we wanted to go further. And so since then, we've been building a number of different products on top of it. So we've got 11 agents, which is our agents platform for building real-time voice agents. We have our creative platform for powering marketing solutions. We have our API. We also have a number of smaller bets like music and reader. And then we now are introducing services on top. And so I'll be sharing some of these lessons as we bridge that gap between the models and the products. The first one's called Research Push, launch and launch again, structuring the team as independent labs, moving up market with FDEs, and finally products as a service. So the Research Push. This is traditional product development. Many of you in this room will know this far better than me. You really speak to your customers, you understand what they're saying, you do all your user interviews, you then understand what are their different needs, what are the jobs to be done. You're doing anthropology mode with them. And then given that, you're creating solutions, you're working with the engineering team. I'm sure many of you have incredible Miro boards, which is mapping out this process. But what's interesting with ElevenLabs is we actually have these two modes. So we have this customer pull, which many of you are already doing, but we also have this research push. And so ElevenLabs started with Piotr, this researcher, creating this model and just seeing what was possible. So then we paid really close attention to how users were actually doing it. And we're like, wow, there's people making audiobooks. This small text box I spoke about earlier, people were taking entire audiobooks, pasting it in a paragraph at a time into this little box, downloading it, stitching it together, and then uploading it onto different audiobook stores. So we're like, wow, that's a really cool use case. They were using it for marketing. They were using it for a whole bunch of different things. And so what's interesting about ElevenLabs is we actually have these researchers who are doing the building of the models. But what's fantastic about this modern world of AI is these models are launching every single week, every single month. And just like we have it internally, we also pay attention to what's possible out there. So I spend a lot of time looking at the image and video models and what are the key unlocks where it wasn't possible a few months before, but it now is. So videos is one where only really at the end of last year with the VO models did it cross that threshold of super realistic generation. And when you have these new models, each new model unlocks some new set of capabilities which enables new products and features. And so to give you another example, 11 Flash was our first low latency voice model. And when we shipped this, we had also been paying lots of attention to, okay, how are customers actually using our API? And one was in education, where companies like Duolingo are building interactive content. And then what you need to do is marry this, how the customers actually use your products with, okay, what's actually been just unlocked? And then together that you're like, okay, well, that's like a cool use, but what would be even better? What if you could have like an interactive tutor that you could just speak to and it would work all the time? So this is the loop that we run every single time a new model is released. So first, you need to do this background work, the great product work, which is deeply understanding your customers and the jobs to be done. Next, you need to pay attention to the new model releases and what they actually unlock. And then this is the really fun bit. You're like, wow, a new model has just came out. How can we galvanize the team to actually ship and launch and release a new product that wasn't even possible before? And the particularly cool bit about this modern world of AI is these gives you these viral launch moments where it's like, wow, before maybe you had an add-on for Excel which like helped give you nice templates, but now you can like programmatically generate an entire Excel template directly for them and turn it into a launch moment. So that feeds nicely to the second lesson we've learned, which is launch and launch again. And so you have these new models. These give you new capabilities, and these give you the option, if you move quick enough and someone doesn't get there before you, to create these really viral moments to show what's possible. And so launch is really at the heartbeat of ElevenLabs. And so they're one of these unique moments which allows your entire company to work together to focus on this one moment. So whether you're product, engineering, marketing, sales, even legal, you're like, this is the date that we're going to try and sprint and launch and do this product. It gives you that urgency moment. You can create clarity across the team. What are you actually shipping towards? And it also, if you do it right, you get that first boost of revenue, which helps validate what you've shipped. It's actually correct. So I'm going to speak a little bit about how we do launches and how we approach them. So this is the rough formula that I have in my head. The most important base of this equation is the product. Ultimately, if you built a fantastic product, that's what's going to carry the whole launch. And so you're unlocking one of these new capabilities that just wasn't possible before. I then think about it as being raised to the power of the messaging and the assets, and then you have the distribution. And so when we think about launches, we break it down into 3 tiers. The first is, these are the big splashes. These are whole new product lines. These are massive capabilities which just weren't possible before. The second are these kind of smaller setups, but big enough that you still want to put it on socials and be proud of it. And the third is the more incremental bits. These are normally you just put it on the changelog. An interesting point, though, is we actually applied this whole like launches system beyond just our products. So if we think about case studies or anything else we're proud of, new funding rounds, we're again put it through this playbook. So this is a rough set of what it looks like. It's also on my blog if you want to download the sheet. But what's less important about the specifics is working out what's the playbook that matters to you. Where your customers live will be completely different. How you interact with them, what resonates. So you need to work out what are the different steps of things which work for you. You then go through the step of you build the product, turn that into the messaging, the assets, and then into the distribution. So here's an example we did for the messaging. So we released Scribe, which was our first speech-to-text model. So we created incredible voices, and then we're like, okay, we've realized that actually there's this whole other step of how do you actually transcribe what's possible. And so we riffed, okay, and again, another great one to get Miro out. You're like, okay, what does this actually unlock? There was some really cool stuff, like this was the first transcription model which was viable in a bunch of different languages. So like Swahili, Serbian just weren't possible transcription before, so we had like crossed that threshold. But actually the headline stat was like, okay, this is the most accurate model possible. Or most accurate model at the time. Then we started thinking, okay, who are the audiences? Who specifically are we going after? Getting the whole team aligned. There's normally a few secondary value props. And the important thing that we've worked out for ourselves is, for the value props, we write it exactly as the messaging, which will show up in our tweets. And it's actually normally the tweet thread we're actually brainstorming together, doing that little iteration. So you can see we worked out early on we want like a benchmark showing the accuracy of our model compared to the other models. And then there's the video. And so the video is, I'll play the video in a second. If I jump that. Perfect. Videos are such a powerful tool. The first hire I made at ElevenLabs was a motion designer. And so particularly when you have complex products, if you're serving enterprises or developers, you actually have a ton of different contexts you want to get across. And I like to think of videos as the most powerful sales tool you'll ever have, because you can really take the time to craft the script, craft the messaging, work with the team, and then I'll show you the video that we use for Scribe v2 if they can kindly play it.
ElevenLabs speech-to-text just had another major breakthrough with Scribe v2, outperforming major ASR competitors across English and multilingual datasets, including dynamic detection for over 90 different languages. With improved character-level timestamps, speaker diarization, and now with custom key term prompting to guarantee consistent improvement across names, technical vocabulary, and domain-specific terms. Word by word, syllable by syllable, captured with unmatched accuracy. And now with entity detection too, for the ability to collect and identify specific information with exact timestamps. So start building with Scribe v2 today, only with ElevenLabs.
Fantastic. So the team did a great job with that video, and it's actually a really complex product which we've hopefully managed to keep your attention to for the full 2 minutes. Next, we really think about the landing page, and specifically we think, how can we take what's the wow moment of the product and bring that as early as possible? And with AI, it's now often possible to actually bring that even before they need to sign up for the product. So how can you bring it as early as possible? And finally, there's distribution. Everyone's will look different, but I think the important lesson for us Europeans that we should learn from our American counterparts is we need to be a little louder. And so often when I'm speaking to people, they're like, oh, yeah, it's a nice feature, but, you know, we're just sending the relevant Slack or Teams messages to the customers to let them know. It's like, no. Like this, how can you actually, and I often argue with the team, I'm like, how could we turn this from a tier 2 launch to a tier 1? How could we make this something press-worthy or something that people would share on social media or get a fantastic lighthouse customer involved? Cool. So we've hopefully, that's the end of the second lesson we've learned. So we've hopefully came up with some ideas for new features based on these incredible new models. We've now launched them. We're building some traction. But then how do we keep that going? How do we keep what we had special before as a fast-moving company? How do we keep moving quickly with high autonomy? And so we've grown from 5 people to 500 in just 4 years now. And we have a bunch of different products. And the key lesson I've had drilled into me time and time again is every product should be a maximum of 3 to 11 people. They need to be independent teams with ownership and autonomy. They need a clear leader, and particularly at the start, a private Slack channel, such that they can just like move quickly, do their thing. And then what we constantly try and do is when a team gets bigger, how do we shard it but still enable an independent leader within that team with super high autonomy? And this is probably obvious to lots of people in the room, but time and time again, when a team starts to slow down, I'm like, we've accidentally got the back-end engineers and the front-end engineers in a completely different team. Of course they've slowed down. But then also we try and take this further, like how do you get design or marketing or whoever the cross-functional stakeholders that are needed and put them in that team, all responsible to that one leader. How many people are PMs in this room as well? Cool. So controversially, we don't have PMs yet. I think actually as we grow, this may change. We do have PM-shaped people. And my broader thesis here is that over time, and as AI gets better, and enables us to do more, kind of the PM job will roughly switch to one of 2 parts. Either it will kind of become this hybrid of engineering, or it will become this hybrid of growth. And so I personally lean this more growth side. But people still need to do the PM type work. And so this is how we split it. We have the engineering leads, and they are fully responsible for the product. So as soon as someone gets in the product, that's the engineering lead, that's their team, that's what they're shipping, that's what they control. We then have the growth lead. And so the growth lead owns acquisition, PMM. They're actually often ex-PMs. We find PMs are fantastic at often particularly technical products, the enterprise side, they know how to work with engineers. So that works really well for us. They together combine on the longer term roadmap, but explicitly we make one person the overall lead and DRI. And so, to give you an example with our agents product, Joseph, he's an engineer, he joined, he was like, okay, I'm going to give a crack at this agents product. He had a Slack channel of just him and his manager, Piotr, the CTO, and he just sprinted at it. And so he got ready, he got that first product, he was then managed to get a version of these voice agents which actually worked. He then got a few more engineers which then started to report to him. When it started going well, we then also added a growth lead, Lauren, to it. And this is actually now our fastest growing product ever. It's significant amount of our revenue, some fantastic customers. So that's 11 agents. We also just managed to do it again with our core app, which is a mobile app for creative, and that went from 0 to over $10 million in revenue in 6 months. So again, they're like small teams. One other thing which we've done, which I think is partly responsible for helping make this successful, is every engineer we hire, we give them a product challenge. And so they will do the challenge with either one of the growth folks or an engineer who's particularly good at product. And this will look like 3 stages. So first of all, we give them a vague problem definition. They need to define the feature requirements. They need to sketch the UI, and then they need to make the system design. And so can we see whether that engineer can think that full end-to-end on the product, as well as being a strong engineer? Cool. So we're hopefully now moving quickly with our independent teams. And something we then really wanted to do was, how do we push up market? How can we serve bigger customers? And our secret weapon so far has been using forward deployed engineers. And so traditionally, and in companies I've worked at before, you constantly have this tension between you have a shiny, fantastic new enterprise you could help land, or you have the core roadmap which you've thought about super carefully and you've done your ranking, and how on earth do you weigh those up together? And so that's where we use forward deployed engineers. And the specific goal of the forward deployed engineering team is consistently thinking, how could we unlock a 2x bigger deal than anything we've ever done before? And they're given the authority, their own roadmap, they have engineers on their team to actually build what they need to unlock for that specific customer. So they can move independently. Sometimes we then bring those product features back, sometimes we don't. But again, in this age of AI, they're able to actually move, ship, and maintain code so much faster than before. So to give you an example, when we first launched our agents product, we had the agents product, which was our full end-to-end product. And then we had our API, but we didn't have anything in the middle. So you had to choose one or the other. And so that's where we had this idea of launching Speech Engine, because the FDEs were like, okay, I'm just going to extract a chunk of the product, which is all the voice orchestration, and ship that independently. And we then worked to release that as a standalone product. And the last one is products as a service. And so we've gone from models to products. And finally, we're really thinking about services. And how can we deliver far more value to the user? How do we solve the end-to-end problem? And so traditionally, you would sell tools. You would build a customer support help desk. Different people would then work in and use that. But what's really cool with AI is you can actually expand beyond that. And the definition I would use of a service is, how do you actually do that full revenue loop? And so if it's something like customer support, how do you do that full answering the phone, solving the end user customer, and then you can adjust the support team to being the orchestrators of the agents, enabling you to go to always on support. How do you scale up independently? How do you go to multi-country? We've also done this again on the marketing side, where we started with this voiceover, people were using it for marketing, and we're announcing next month we actually have a full end-to-end ads product. And the really cool thing is, if you're able to actually prove to customers that you are providing them a full service, you can actually switch your value capture, so maybe charge for outcome, charge of a percentage of ad spend.